Today I'm going to talk about the Insta 360 1R twin pack. It comes with the 4K mod and the 360 mod. In the first section, we're going to talk about some of the problems I had activating the camera with the smartphone and the simple solutions. In the second part, I'm going to do a quick review of the camera, comparing it to my GoPro Hero Black 7 that I've had for a year now. A quick review, a quick comparison. Okay, so let's talk about activating this with your smartphone. At first glance, I thought, and a lot of other people on social media thought, why do I have to activate this with my smartphone? What a dumb idea. I just want to buy a camera and turn it on and, make videos. And the first problem I ran into with my smartphone, I could download the app, but it wouldn't install it. And I'm like scratching my head going, oh, here we go. And of course, I've read on social media about people having trouble with activation. So I immediately jumped into the Insta360 Facebook page. That's a great resource. Right off the bat, that's a great resource. And they always have an Insta360 tech monitoring that page, and they will quite often help you out. My problem was I had a cheap phone. Even though it was fairly new, within 6 months, it was a cheap Moto E $150 phone up here in Canada. It's only a 32-bit. I needed a 64-bit phone. So I thought, well, that's fine. My wife's got a good phone. When I can get her phone, I'll do that. And her phone is a Samsung A. Now, that's not on their list, but I thought, well, I'll try it anyway. It's a 64-bit phone. And sure enough, downloaded the app and it installed. No problem. I thought, great. I'm off to the races. The next problem I ran into was when I went to activate the camera, when I turned the camera on, I was getting an error message in the phone that said cannot connect to the internet. And I also had a small message in the top left-hand corner of the camera that said low memory. Now, I thought, well, okay, it's not connecting to the camera, so it's not activating, so it's not reading the card yet. That's why it's low memory. What really threw me off is I have a terrible internet connection. Sometimes it's only about 3 megabytes a second. And that threw me off. And I thought, well, I'll go to a friend's with a better connection. Now, you tech-savvy guys and gals out there are thinking, well, your internet speed's got nothing to do with connecting the camera to the phone. And you're right. I went to a friend's, better connection, same problem. Cannot connect to the internet. So I came home, and in the meantime, an Insta-tech had been following my story, and he saw that I'd mentioned the flashing blue light in the top right corner. And he commented, well, that could be problems with your SD card. Make sure it's formatted to exFAT and insert it properly. And I had it formatted to exFAT, but I thought, well, let's do this again. Pulled it out, reformatted it, put it back in the camera, turned the camera on, and boom, I was in business. The camera found the phone. They started talking to each other. The camera downloaded the firmware update. I don't think I had to do anything. It just basically set itself up. And at one point when it downloads, be advised, when it downloads the firmware onto the camera basically shuts off. And it takes a few minutes. So just be patient and let it do its thing and install the firmware. And damn, it was that easy. I mean, I was kind of concerned because I'd heard about all these people having problems. But for me, once I got past those two initial easy fixes, the whole process was very easy and very painless. I've had the camera for a few months now. So when I got it, it was April 2021. And it looks like what's happened with the Insta 361R is they might have rolled it out a little bit too quick, and they had some problems with their firmware updates, and they had some glitches and stuff. But for me, April 2021, it was a no-brainer. It was really easy. So I just wanted to share that. I wanted to share that story. Let's look at what comes with the camera and some of the accessories that I think are a good idea. So of course you get your battery, and you get your 4K wide mod and your controller mod, and with the 360 twin you get your 360 mod. Now it also comes with a lens protector for the 360. I actually bought a second one because I didn't realize that was going to come in the box. They're only $6, so it's not a bad idea to have a spare of these anyway, because you're going to want this on your camera all the time when you're not using it to avoid scratching the lens. And of course it comes with a cage, and the cage, much like a GoPro cage, and it actually works with all your GoPro mounts if you're a GoPro person. What it doesn't come with is the SD card, and what you need for these cameras is the new V30 cards, SanDisk Extreme Victor 30. So if you're ordering one of these, make sure you order an SD card with it. Otherwise, you'll be not able to use it. A lot of people talk about the Insta360 selfie stick. It's a great piece of kit. They say it's invisible. They're all invisible. Any selfie stick you put on this is going to be invisible. It doesn't come with the mounting bracket, but it's a nice solid feeling piece of kit. And what I like about it is its size. When it's collapsed, it's just over 6 inches, and it extends out. It'll extend out to about 27, that's pretty nice. But like I said, it feels like a really nice solid piece of kit for $20. So I would recommend getting that. I'm going to do another video showing you how to make a long 6-foot, 8-foot extender pole for less than $10. I'll put a link to that. I got an extra battery and the vertical charger for $20, which I liked. And with the Insta360, the audio adapter to your stereo mini is only $10. So of course, I was going to get one of those. So another accessory that you can get that you might want to consider is the lens guard for your 360 mod. This is something that clips onto the cage, and they're, I think, $30 US, and they're a guard that you shoot with, and it protects both your 360 lenses. And they also have a guard now with that functions as an ND filter as well. So I might get one of those. It's not a bad idea to have an ND filter on there as well. Okay, so now I was going to compare the Insta360 to my GoPro Hero Black 7 that I've had for about a year. I've had this for about 2 months. I'm not going to get into a lot of tech spec geek speak. I'm just going to try to give you an overview of my experience. If you want to do more research, there's lots of videos out there. They're both pretty comparable performance-wise in the 4K mod, and the Insta360 360 mod compares pretty close to the GoPro Fusion 360. They're pretty close that way. So the big difference is your price point. You're going to save a couple of $100 with the Insta360. The Insta360 does shoot in HDR 5.7K mode, and some people claim that's one of the best performing video modes in this class of cameras. So again, you can go online and do some research and see the comparisons of the two formats. One of the things about the 360 I liked was the audio adapter was only $10. For the GoPro, it's like $50. I see you can get a knockoff online for $16, probably $20 shipping or something. One of my complaints with both of these cameras are these access doors. On the GoPro, the door is your door to get at your if you need to plug in an external battery or whatever. And if you want to use this in the cage and you want to access that, you have to take this door off. And I hear people complaining about them breaking and costing $50, $60 to replace. I'm sure a lot of guys out there are going, well, I take my door off and on all the time. It's not a problem. Well, you read about a lot of people breaking these, and they cost a lot of money to replace. I just didn't want to tempt the gods. So to plug in an external battery, my solution was to get one of these cheap dollar store phone clips. You've seen these for selfie sticks and stuff. Get one of those cheap phone clips and use that, put it on a tripod, and that worked fine. And then I never had to take the door off. So it kind of solved that problem. And speaking of doors, the Insta360 door comes off easy. It comes off way too easy. I was out in the field the other day doing some shooting, moving around different locations, and at one point I got in the car and looked in the front seat, and there was the door sitting there on the seat. It had just come off on its own accord. I had an external mic plugged in, and I hadn't taken the door right off. Next time, I'll take the door right off. It does come off easy. It's just a cheap plastic, little thin thread that plugs in and unplugs. So if you're going to go out in the field with this, take the door off if you're going to plug in a mic, and it does come off really easy. So in that regard, I would give the door prize to the GoPro. I think it's got a better designed door. Are they waterproof? I haven't tried, and I'm not going to. I'm certainly not going to try with the Insta360. I'll be selling the GoPro now, but I'm not going to try with the Insta360. I've got an old Sony AS15 action cam with an underwater case. I'll use that for underwater shots. I won't have 360 underwater, but I'll use that Sony for underwater shots. I had problems with the GoPro doing time-lapse overheating, and a quick check online. The solution was simple. Just take the internal battery out and use an external battery for long time lapses, and sure enough, that worked fine. I did some 12-hour time lapses, overnight time lapses with the GoPro that were really dramatic. They looked really good. I haven't done time lapse with the Insta360 yet, but I have seen people complaining about them overheating. So I suspect it's the same thing. You have to take the battery off and use an external power. But then, of course, you're not going to be able to use your cage. But I suspect it's the same problem with the battery overheating. And my theory is that because they're both waterproof, that's why they overheat, because they're so tight. The battery heat can't dissipate. If anybody wants to chime in on that, please comment down below. My biggest complaint with the GoPro, and it was from the very beginning, was that the menu is just so darn sensitive. I just felt, I guess I got a little bit used to it over time, but it still was just so sensitive. Or you'd look at the camera and it would switch into a different mode. For instance, it would switch to that 45-second looping mode, which I think is the stupidest feature I've ever seen on a video camera. So you'd go to hit record button, and you'd be locked into this 45-second loop. It's like, oh man, you have to wait for it to finish and then go in and change the settings again. And sometimes the screen would freeze just out of nowhere. And of course, with the sensitive screen, I can hear the GoPro people saying, yeah, we'll just lock the screen. Yeah, I could lock the screen, but then I lose the zoom feature. And that was one of the things that attracted me to the GoPro, was that zoom. It's not a great zoom, but it's better than nothing. So with the Insta360 menu, the Insta360 touchscreen menu, I just found it not as sensitive, so it was easier to navigate. And once you made a setting, it seemed to lock onto that setting. I did have problems with the exposure, though. I was exploring the manual exposure settings, and I couldn't get back to auto. And I found that really annoying. And I was informed by the Insta360 tech that I'd have to do it with my phone. Well, the problem there, as I said earlier, is I had to use my wife's phone to activate the camera. So that's a little bit annoying. But generally, I find the menu on the Insta360, because it's not quite so sensitive, that it's easier to navigate and easier to use. Through the process of researching the 360, I came across somebody who's having problems with their lens fogging. And that right away threw up all kinds of red flags for me. And I live on the west coast of Canada, where we get lots of rain and lots of humidity. And I was suddenly going, oh, maybe I can't buy this camera. So I searched out the Facebook group for the camera, and I asked about that problem. Are other people having problems? Well, nobody there was having a problem. People were doing 12-hour time lapses overnight outside, and it all seemed fine. But I found it interesting that an Insta360 tech did respond to my query, and he did suggest not changing mods when you're out in the field, not switching from the 4K wide angle to your 360 mod. And that indicates to me that they have had some problems with the lenses fogging. Maybe it was an early version of the camera, but if you do want to use this, especially up in the mountains where it's colder, what I suggest you do, if you're going to be switching back and forth, is carry your other mod in a fanny pack away from your body. So don't put it inside your jacket close to your body where it could get warmed up, and then you bring it out into the cold environment. And it's probably a good idea even to bring them out and try to let it climatize for a few minutes until you do the swap. But it sounds like they did have some problems. Maybe it was just the earlier versions with lenses fogging up. And my other complaint about the GoPro was that I would put a fresh battery in, pick it up 2 or 3 days later, and the battery would be drained. I found that really annoying. Of course, the first time that happened, I only had the one battery because I didn't think I was going to use it that much. I had to go online, and I got a charger and a couple of batteries for $30. But be advised, if you're going the GoPro route, and I've heard other people complain about that they will drain batteries. Another thing I found annoying about the GoPro was sometimes it didn't want to turn on. I'd press the button and it just wouldn't come on. I'd have to recycle the battery. I'd have to pull the battery out and put it back in to turn it on. That was annoying. With the Insta360, I find it to be nice and crisp. You press the button, a couple of seconds, it comes on. Same thing when you want to turn it off. It's just nice and crisp. The last point comparison with the GoPro 360 Fusion and the Insta360 is stitching. They both look about the same. There's some good videos, guys do really good side-by-side comparisons where you can really see the stitching. And they both look very comparable, very much the same. And they both have problems with stitching. You definitely want to avoid your subject. You want to make sure your subject's not on a stitch line, because you will see it. You will see the stitch line. You'll lose some of the information right on that stitch line. If you're thinking about getting into a commercial business with these cameras, especially if you want to do virtual reality stills, you want to look at a better camera. And with the Insta360 family, look at the 1X. The 1X does a much better job of stitching. You're going to spend a bit more money, but if you're looking at this as a commercial endeavor, then you definitely want to check that out. For me, I'm just fooling around with some YouTube videos, and I can live with it. Something else I wanted to talk about was H.265. Now, everybody on the setup videos that you see with the Insta360, everybody's using H.265 and 5.7K if their system can handle it. I'm using 4K because that's all my system can handle. So I shot a bunch of video using H.265 and came back to do some editing, and I'm working with older Macs. I've got a 2012 iMac with an i5 processor and a 2009 Mac Pro Tower. I'm going to do videos on that. And I knew they were going to be slow, but I'm doing really simple travel videos. But I knew it was going to be challenging, and I knew they were going to be slow. With the H.2.5 videos that I shot, I couldn't even preview them barely in a cheap NLE I'm using. I just had to trim them in Insta360 Studio, and I'd trim them there, and then just drop them into my NLE and do some dissolves, and know that they were just going to be okay. Put a couple of shots together, but I couldn't preview them or work with them at all. And I did some research, and it turns out that H.265 is a new codec, of course, and it's been formulated and developed with new processors in mind. So it just wouldn't work with my older processors. So what I did was I switched back to H.264, shot some footage, and it was night and day. I could drop that in, I could preview it. It was still kind of slow, but it was actually doable. I could actually work with it. Okay, so thanks for watching. I'm going to do some more videos. I'm going to do a video about cheap extender poles that you can do for under $10, 8 10-foot extender poles that you can do for under $10. And when I do that video, I'm going to talk about using a handheld mic as opposed to a wireless mic. That's a lot less money. And I'm going to do other videos about my workflow, working with I've got a old 2012 iMac i5 processor, and I've got an old 2009 G5 tower that's been DOS-duded, patched, and it's got High Sierra on it. And I'm using a DaVinci 16. So I'm going to do a video talking about my workflow. So thanks for watching, and check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time.